Greetings, book nerds of the interwebs. It is that time of the year in which people like to discuss what their reading is looking like for the new year. So that is what we're here to discuss today. These are my 2023 priority reads. These are not going to be, I didn't even introduce myself. Hi, my name is Lorna. I talk about books. And so these books are not all encompassing. I picked the top 24. And by that I mean the books that if I could only read 24 books, or there was no method or madness to the number. Just when I looked at the books on my shelves, I was like, these are the books that if I don't read anything else, this is what I'm going to prioritize. So that's what these books are. I am going to try to fly through these books as quickly as possible and just kind of just hold them up. This is it. I may say why, but we got to get through 24 books. So, and I'm pretty proud of myself. A lot of these are books. Some of these are books that have been in my shelves for a long time. A lot of these books are books that I hauled last year. So I'm making sure to read what I've hauled. And some of them, so yeah, these are books where I've picked them from my shelf. I'm really trying to make an effort moving forward to read books that I own. But like I said, this is not all encompassing. I will probably read more than 24 books. I'll probably read at least double that. And so again, those other books are books from my shelves. But if you forced me to only read 24 books, it'd be these books. I don't know why I'm saying 24, but that's what I selected. Let's stop babbling. I've already started reading this one. Actually, by the time this video goes up, I'm recording this the last week of 2022. By the time this video goes up, I will probably be at least way past the halfway point, if not almost done with the book. Dragonfly and Amber by Diana Gabaldon. I feel like now I've started this tradition of reading an Outlander book like the last week of the year into the new year. They're just, man, this book is a joy. It's just so funny. I forget how funny these characters are, but Dragonfly and Amber is the second installment of the Outlander series. I have read it before. The first time I read this book was in 2015 into 2016. And at the time, I was actually heading into a reading slump. There was some other stuff going on in my life and I just was not focused on reading. And so I just don't feel like I appreciated this book as much as I should have. And so I'm already enjoying it way more than I did the first time I read it. And I liked it the first time I read it. I was just kind of in a brain fog. And I might say that this might be another 5-star read. This might be a 5-star read. We'll see. If not, it'll be at least a 4. All right. Another reread. Again, I read this in 2014. I remember some of it. Game of Thrones, the first one. I will be attempting to read the Game of Thrones series, Song of Ice and Fire, so I might as well start from the beginning. I read the first 2. Again, I was heading into a reading slump. I wasn't in a reading slump in 2014, but when I picked up the second and the third, those 2 are complete blurs to me, so you know that Outlander's thick when it makes Game of Thrones look thin, and Game of Thrones has bigger font. But you're going to see, I have quite a few fantasy picks here, so Game of Thrones. Butcher's Crossing. John Williams, Stoner. Stoner is one of my favorite books of all time, and I need to read more John Williams because he's such a treat. So this book is taking place in 1870s West in the United States. So I've heard that this book is phenomenal. This is a predicted top read of the year. One of the top reads of the year. I actually have no idea out of all of these books that I've labeled as my priority reads, which is going to be a top read, but I can kind of suspect what's going to be a 5-star read. I'm predicting this is going to be a 5-star read. John Williams is an artist. He's so good. If you haven't read John Williams and you've been considering it, what are you doing? Do it now. Mieko Kamakami's Breasts and Eggs. I actually already have this book bookmarked. I've got my bookmark picked out for it. And that's it. But Um, this book also will represent me venturing back into Japanese fiction. So I have so much Japanese fiction I want to get through. What is it about Japanese fiction? There's something special about it. There's something simple about the storytelling that's also somehow quite profound. I don't know what it is, but it's good. And so I'm going to start with Breast and Eggs. I expect this book to be an okay read for me because it's really two pieces of work in one. I've heard the first part is good, and then after that, the second part is her expanding on the first part, and I've heard that that's kind of where it gets repetitive and kind of drags. But overall, I think I'm going to get on with Meiko Kawakami, and I wanted to read this first before I get into Heaven and the other one that was released in English this past year. Waiting for the paperback of that to come out, of the Europa edition. But Breast and Eggs, I will be reading this one in January. Another book I'm reading in January, another reread, Beowulf. I read this in high school and hated it, but that's okay. It's time for a reread. It's time to read this of my own volition. So, my fun fact, I found out that my mother loves Beowulf. My mother loves Beowulf. She said when she had to read it in school, she thought it was such fun. She really enjoyed the language. My mother is actually really good with languages, but Beowulf. I'm reading this because there's something about the beginning of Game of Thrones, the first book, that reminds me of Beowulf with the creatures, the others in the forest. I need to close this chapter in my mind. I need to draw this connection and move on with my life. So Beowulf. Also, Beowulf, you don't really have modern day fantasy without Beowulf. So I feel like I have to give it another chance. And this cover, immaculate. All right. Oh, poor Jane Austen, Mansfield Park. This book has been on my TBR for a long time, and I just have never really gotten around to reading it because it just gets trumped by other things. This is going to be my year of Mansfield Park. I will make sure that I read it. I am not allowed to wrap up the year without reading Mansfield Park. And then I am done with all of Jane Austen's books. And I feel like Fanny is, if people say they don't like an Austen novel, it's Mansfield Park. But I feel like I'm going to get on with Fanny. She's a quiet character. She's often misunderstood. She's not really that assertive. That's the point. So because I understand what Fanny and who Fanny is supposed to be, I'm going to be able to understand and like the book from that perspective. But I just need to suck it up and read the book. So, Mansfield Park. Mansfield Park was in my list last year, and she got trumped by other things. I'm sorry. Let's look at this tower behind me. Okay. Unnecessarily awkward. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. Who doesn't want Victorian historical fiction taking place during the Victorian period that's also like a fantasy? Sign me up. So I am excited about this book. I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with it. And it's a chunker. I like a thick one. I like a thick one. So this book here, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, my bookish friends who know my taste pretty well said that I'm probably going to get on with this. So there's that. Not much else to say about it. Another reread. The Iliad by my boy Homer. I have read this twice before. I don't know where my college edition is. I probably gave it away out of anger. Because when you have to, I've said this before, but when you have to read this book from the military perspective, it's boring. But it's time for me to reread the Iliad for fun and just spend time with some of my favorite Greek heroes just for fun. So I'm ready to spend some time with my boy Achilles and my boys Agamemnon and Hector and all that jazz. My boy Odysseus. So I'm excited to read this of my own volition. Yes, school ruins a lot of books, don't they? And I know that this is a great piece of fiction. So I need to, like Beowulf, I just need to give it another chance. There was a time I actually did not like the Iliad because, again, maybe I just had school issues. So the Iliad. 3's the charm. Let's do both of these at the same time. You guys, did you know? Maybe you don't. I love Dostoevsky. He is my literary crush. My guy. The Brothers Karamazov is one of my favorite books of all time. And this year, Notes from Underground, a slim volume from Dostoevsky, Say Less, and The Idiot. I am predicting that these two are going to be 5-star reads. I prefer Dostoevsky over Tolstoy. He's grittier and darker and edgier, and I like that. And both of them philosophize, but I prefer Dostoevsky's brand of philosophy over Tolstoy's. Tolstoy, my review of War and Peace. He talks too much. War and Peace is a great read. Don't get me wrong, but he talks too much. Way too much. My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. This book has been on my radar for a very long time, so I'm finally glad to be getting around to starting the Neapolitan Quartet. I also anticipate this being a 5-star read or a top read of the year because I just have that feeling. I just got that feeling. I feel like I'm going to really appreciate this book, so I'm excited to get into the Neapolitan Quartet. I told you I'm gonna fly through these books. I'm almost done. Look at this stack. Ooh, again, 2 more books I'm gonna do together. Ooh. Rereads. Quite a few rereads in this stack, aren't there? That's okay. I believe in rereading. These are heavy. The Return of the King and the Two Towers. My goal is to finish rereading the Lord of the Rings trilogy this year. These books are thicker than they appear. Actually, both of these books are thinner, but as in they have less page counts. They're shorter books than The Fellowship of the Ring. The Return of the King looks super thick because it has this massive section of notes and appendices at the end. Appendi. There's a lot of appendix at the end. There's a lot of notes. So these two. And Tolkien, The Return of the King, The Fellowship of the Ring, Lord of the Rings, they're not very difficult to get through. There are some slow bits here and there, but Tolkien, these are so heavy. Tolkien is such a cozy writer. He's such an inviting writer that reading these books is just such a joy. And so I will be, did you hear that burp? I'm sorry. I'm gonna burp myself. My goal is to finish my reread of the series this year because anybody else already playing their 2024 reading? Me, I'm that person. The Silmarillion, I hate saying that, is what I'm planning to tackle in 2024. So these editions also are just so good. HarperCollins nailed it. Another Victorian classic, but a Victorian classic that is not widely discussed, Lorna Dune by R.D. Blackmore. This is going to be, you can tell this penguin cover is different. It's old school because it's shiny. This is going to be a buddy read with me and a Bookstagram friend. Anybody remember the very early 2000s BBC adaptation of this that is so quintessential early 2000s, like late 90s? It's so cheesy, but in the best way possible, of Lorna Dune. So I've heard that this book it can drag a bit because, like most Victorian writers, he just goes on and on and on about things like the scenery. But I like scenic writing, so I plan to read Lorna Dune with a friend. So yeah, there's nothing else to say. I'm moving along. I'm trying to get through all these books. More fantasy. I'm starting the Farseer trilogy, The Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. This is not a long volume, but I prefer a character-driven story. And so this is why I think the Farseer trilogy has appealed to me, because it's a character-driven fantasy, and I've heard that it's not high fantasy. If I'm going to read fantasy, I really don't prefer it to be so complicated. I'm like, what is happening? The world building to be so complicated, it just trumps everything else. I prefer it to still be focused on the characters, and so I'm excited to be getting into the Farseer trilogy. So more fantasy. I am continuing my Proust journey with the second volume of In Search of Lost Time within a budding grove. This is much thicker, by at least 100 pages, than Swan's Way, but I am excited about this book because Swan's Way made me a better reader, and so more Proust. I'm eager to read more Proust because he's one of those authors that if you read him, it's like lifting weights. You get better at it, you get stronger. So I'm excited about that. But he is a writer I find to be fatiguing. So once I'm done with him, I can't just dive right into the next volume. I need a break. Almost like Shakespeare, I need a break from certain authors. I will be wrapping up the Wolf Hall Trilogy by Hilary Mantel with this. This book is massive. The Mirror and the Light. This is the last installment. My nails match. So satisfying. This is the last installment of the Wolf Hall Trilogy. So, I mean, we all know that Cromwell's end is nasty. So I'm curious to see how she's going to tie all of this together. And this is a chunker. This is, 900 pages? Just shy of 900 pages? It's just shy of 900 pages. But let me know if anybody else is like this. I find that a 900-page contemporary novel does not read the same as a 900-page classic. There's just something about a contemporary novel that's just easier to get through for me. So yes, this is chunky, but I don't think it's going to take me more than 4 weeks to get through. And it's not like the font is microscopic. It's not like picking up War and Peace, where it's thick and the font is microscopic. So I'm excited to finish this off because I enjoyed the other two. A book I don't see a lot of people talking about. This is the first installment of, is it the Game of Kings series? No, the Lymond Chronicles, the Game of Kings. This is a historical fiction set in Scotland in the 1500s. And I have a bookish friend on Instagram who says that these books are fantastic. It's some of the best historical fiction she's ever read. And we have similar tastes in books. I love historical fiction. So I was like, I want to try this, by Dorothy Dunnett. This book, I have heard, is dense. The historical accuracy, the language, the reference that she's using to other works of literature, art, whatever, it is dense and it requires work. This book has a companion reader to go with it to help decipher some of that stuff. So I do have that companion with it. People have read it without that, but they do say this book takes some work. However, once you kind of get in the groove of what she's doing, the book picks up pace and you process what she's doing a little bit quicker. But that doesn't deter me. I like a book that's going to, like I said, exercise that muscle. So I'm excited. And if I get on with this, I will be venturing into the other books. This is 1 out of 6 in this series. She has other series as well. But I've heard that when it comes to historical fiction, this is almost as good as it gets, especially when it comes to accuracy. Now, this says combining all the political intrigue of the Game of Thrones with the sweeping romanticism of Outlander. So they had me at that. This one I'm excited for. I think this might be a top read of the year. Let's see. Oh, I'm moving through. I'm proud of myself. Q-Teen-84 by Haruki Murakami. People love this book. People hate this book. I want to find out for myself. This is like fantasy, science fiction. It's got a lot going on. My friend Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in Space likes this book. She doesn't like everything about it, but overall she enjoys this book. And she was like, Lorna, I think you'll get a kick out of this. And so I am excited to read this book. Again, this is a book that is quite thick, but it's contemporary literature. So it's not going to read like War and Peace. And I'm excited to see what I get out of this book. And if I get on with this book, I will be venturing eventually into the rest of his fiction. I decided to go big or go home. I'm starting with the big chunker. Yes. I feel like this is an eclectic blend of contemporary reads, classics, historical fiction, and fantasy. Let's see. I'll be finishing up the Outline Trilogy with the last installment, Kudos by Rachel Cusk. And after I finished Transit, I was like, I'm convinced I got to read the rest of whatever this lady has written. So I will be diving into those later after I finish Kudos. I've heard from some people that Kudos isn't quite as good as the other two, but it's still worth the read. So, and her books never take a long time to get through. So, yeah. The last three are classics that I'm mentioning. Iris Murdoch. It's time for me to get back into some more Iris Murdoch. The Sandcastle. I read The Sea in 2021 and really enjoyed it. So these covers are fantastic. So good. But more Iris Murdoch. I put her on hold last year. It's time to revisit. If you like existentialist narratives, Iris Murdoch. Another Woolf this year, making it slowly but surely through Virginia Woolf's novels. Orlando. I'm going to be tackling Orlando. I'm reading her novels in publication order. So this is why Orlando is up next. I'm excited about this. This is a lot of people's favorite Woolf. So we'll see. Currently my favorite Woolf, I've only read Mrs. Dalloway and To the Lighthouse. It's To the Lighthouse. But I've got others to read. And last but most certainly not least, I like to say that because it's cliche, Dickens is back on the list. This was again on my 2022 TBR and I just didn't get around to it. I banked Dickens. But you know I like my boy Chuck, so I am reading The Old Curiosity Shop. It's back on the list. Look at this cover. Out of print, and I hunted it down like the fiend that I am. I hunted it down quite a while ago, so it was hard to get a hold of then. But To the Lighthouse, not To the Lighthouse. My brain's starting to go. The Old Curiosity Shop. So there it is. Again, this is not all encompassing. There's going to be more millennial fiction. There's stuff here. If I read, I'm going to be reading Severance at some point. Paul, Happy Hour. None of this is serious. I'm predicting I won't like that book. More Japanese fiction. Sweet Bean Paste and more Sayaka Murata. What else? Checkout 19, Joan Didion, Eve Babbitt, Clarice Lispector is, I'm putting it out there that I think I should have put her in this stack. I forgot. Clarice Lispector I'm putting up as one of the top reads of the year and I'm predicting Clarice Lispector is just going to become a favorite author. So she's up there, more historical fiction. And I mean like just for fun historical fiction. These are going to be like my bedside reads. So things like Philippa Gregory that doesn't really have any historical value as far as accuracy, but it's just for fun because you know it's ridiculous. Amor Tolls. Alison Ware, because she is she's more historically accurate. She was a historian. Then, where Philippa Gregory is just there to be fun. She's there to be a little bit more accurate with the twist. I have these out. Some short stories, Dostoevsky's short stories, and some Gogol short stories. So that's why these are out. These are percolating. But, like Simone de Beauvoir's 3 of her short stories in the collection Woman Destroyed. So this is just a general layout of where my reading is going in 2023. Reading from my shelves, that is the emphasis. Also, more Greek mythology. Electra is back there. A book that is not published yet, but is getting published in May of this year, is the 3rd installment of the Wolfden Trilogy by Elodie Harper. Once that book drops, I'm snapping it ASAP. Snapping it up ASAP. Not even going to wait for it to get released in the United States. We'll always get it shipped from the UK. I cannot wait. I love me some Elodie Harper. That is it. Have you read any of these books? Are you planning to read any of these books? And please feel free in the comment section below to let me know what you will be reading in 2023 and what you're most excited about. So these just so happen to be the books that I'm most excited about this year. Again, please feel free to like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. And if you would like, follow me on the Instagrams where I will be up to more bookish shenanigans. See you in the next one. Bye.